security firm SOS Security, and Carol Joynt, who writes a weekly column about Washington for the New York Social Diary. Good to have both of you with us. Carol, I want to start with you. I know you've been at a number of events at the White House under a number of different administrations. Is it normal for a White House social secretary to attend a state dinner as a guest, being formally invited, which, again, was not clear today, but would that be normal protocol?
What would be normal is for a social secretary to be essentially working at the beginning of the event as the guests arrive, greeting them sort of the first hello. And then as the party settles down and gets into swing, the social secretary might join the party. She might even sit down to dinner, but that's unusual, and it would come late in the evening.
Scott, there's a lot of talk about who's to blame here. The Secret Service came out very early on in this and said, look, we take responsibility here. We hold the blame. We heard that again from Mark Sullivan today. When you look at the situation, who holds the blame in your eyes?
I believe that the Secret Service should take the full blame. The ultimate safety of the president revolves around our mission and how we do our job. The staff...
That's very nice, but I don't agree. That's not fair at all.
Why isn't it fair, Carol?
Well, because it's a tandem responsibility. I think the Secret Service has been remarkable through this episode. I mean, these are people who are trained essentially to give their lives to the president, and they have been, you know, I think commendable and sort of falling on their swords for this one. And there's no question that they made mistakes and they behaved inappropriately. But by no means does all the blame fall on them. It's a tandem responsibility. The gate at the White House is a tandem responsibility of both the Secret Service and the social office.
So, Keller, are you saying then that the Secret Service is actually covering for the White House in some respect?
I think the Secret Service is doing what they're trained to do, but this would all be over now, I think, in a lot of ways if two things would happen. If the Salahis would come forward and admit what they did and apologize, sort of following the example of Tiger Woods, and if Desiree Rogers would hand in her resignation.
We should point out, and I want to get your take, Scott, on how common this is. Mark Sullivan did today say in the hearings that there had been a number of meetings ahead of time, and basically there was an agreement that, and I'm just going to read this so I make sure I have it correct, that there's actually a planning meeting before the dinner, and it was decided a single guard would be at the entry checkpoint and that it would be sufficient. And it was understood that if that person had a question involving the guest list, they would summon someone from the White House staff to settle it, which the Secret Service has said didn't happen. Does that sound to you, though, like something that would normally happen? Okay, we'll just let the Secret Service take care of it.
Well, we work around the world in a counterpart capacity. We can't do everything. So when we go to a foreign country, we rely on the police, on their special services, on their intelligence agencies to help us because we're a tiny agency in the scheme of things. So it helps to have staff there. In this case, the staff should have been called if there was a question. What I think happened, and I wasn't there, and I never worked the Presidential Protection Division, but generally in events, no matter where they occur, whether it's the White House or a hotel, the staff works in tandem with the Secret Service and helps us. Here, it was raining, there was an overflow of people, and I think the agents took the ID, did a criminal history check, walked them through the magnetometers, and felt they're safe, the president's good, let them in.
Do you think that we should hear from, as Carol said, would it clear things up fully if we heard from the Salahis and if we heard from Desiree Rogers?
Well, I think it would clear things up. I think that our director did a great job going before Congress today and took the blame because, in deference to what was said, our responsibility is the protection of the president. And if anything happens that it takes away from that, it's our problem. And so we're taking 100% blame. If failure is not an option.
But you shouldn't have to take 100% blame. I mean, I understand why the Secret Service is doing it. And I also, you know, and you would know best about this, Scott, but I've long understood that when there's a state dinner, there's sort of an unspoken understanding that these are the president's guests, these are powerful people, to not give them any, you know, guff, that there's just a different attitude at a state dinner than there would be, say, if tourists are coming through the White House. The Secret Service are under a lot of pressure that they don't really talk about.
So do you think that could have been part of it, Scott? Just the, hey, look, let's not make a fuss. It's the first official state dinner for this administration. We want it to go smoothly.
No, I don't think so. This staff's been efficient, been effective. We've worked and protected candidate Obama longer than any other candidate in the history. So there's a good working relationship from what I understand, and it's been ongoing. Of course, it helps to have cooperation. But I don't think that It's our responsibility.
Right. Is there any concern, and this is something that actually that came up last week with some of our guests, is there any concern in your eyes, Scott, having been a member of the Secret Service, that this reflects poorly on the job that you do as it's seen overseas? The Prime Minister of India was there as well as a number of other dignitaries. Is there concern that people could look at this and go, oh, well, there's a chink in the American armor when it comes to security?
Well, generally, our reputation has been stellar. Does everyone make mistakes? Yes. It's not like technology that might be foolproof. Whenever there's a human involved, there could be human error. But I have to say, and hopefully this won't stop, that other agencies that do what we do around the world for different heads of state have constantly, year to year, come to us for advice and guidance on how to protect their people.
Carol, there was an article in Newsweek recently after this happened with quoting Kathy Hargraves, who had been the assistant for arrangements, I believe was the official title, but she had said, she told the reporter Michael Iskoff, she would stand at the Eastgate portico to greet and check names. Mm-hmm. She tells Newsweek that Desiree Rogers told her when the Obama administration took over, they didn't really feel that this role was necessary at state dinners and that it wouldn't look good in this economy to have somebody whose job was that, essentially. Do you remember this role at events that you've been to, and do you think that had this person been in place, this would have been avoided?
Well, if a lot of things had been different, this would have been avoided. But again, I think it goes back to Desiree Rogers, and there have been generals who've resigned for, less in many ways. But I think that hiding behind the notion of executive privilege, though she hasn't been subpoenaed, so I don't know if it really is executive privilege. They're just. Traditionally in Washington and the White House, when you're distracting this much attention from the real business of why the president's elected, you tend to, when you become the heat-seeking object, you quietly resign. That's just the way it's usually done. That doesn't mean that Desiree Rogers, there aren't a dozen other jobs she could do and do remarkably well, but this was a pretty big failure.
It'd be interesting to see if, in fact, those subpoenas do come. Lawmakers have said they may subpoena both the Salahis and Desiree Rogers.
We're hoping this will be over soon.
Oh, I think we have at least another couple of days, Carol. Come on.
Oh, okay, well.
Carol Joynt, Scott Alswag, good to have both of you with us. Thanks.